Hello and welcome to the 5 Yard Dynasty podcast. I hope you are all doing well. Week 1 is in the books. Liam, was week 1 kind to you?
It was a mixed bag, to be honest. I had a couple of good weeks, but a couple of frustrating matchups where I was one of the top scorers and then ended up still losing my matchup because I went against the top in the whole league. So a bit frustrating, but let's face it, week 1's all about beating someone, and I beat you twice this week. So that's all I need to know.
I was wondering how long into the show you were going to mention it. We've got 10 seconds in. There you go. It's
Instantly.
Official. I'd like to point out that you beat me once in the UKFL. I absolutely trounced you in the Patreon league, and then you beat me in a Dynasty league where I think I've lost. Is it Akers, Dobbins, and I'm already rebuilding considering we only started 2 months ago.
I don't know. I'm not looking at your roster. I'm just enjoying the win, to be honest. How have you done this week, mate?
Average. I have got far too much Aaron Rodgers, far too much Ryan Tannehill, and far too much Saquon Barkley to have had a good week. I won my home league, which that's the big one that matters. I had a fantastic week in some tournaments. I think I was top 50 in Warrior Bowl, top number 1 in the JTT Best Ball Cup. So yeah, it was pretty good week. But before we dive in, I just want to remind you that this show, indeed the live stream and the podcast, is brought to you by the Lawnmower 4.0. For those of you who haven't gone out and got one as of yet, you are absolutely missing out. Manscaped is the number 1 in men's below the waist grooming. We've got an exclusive offer for you with 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code 5yard. Basically, let's be honest, we've been talking about this now for almost a month. The product is incredible. It has got some incredible features. The little LED light, I have to say, is an absolute lifesaver. Honestly, don't just take my word for it. Go out, get one. You will thank me down the line. Trust me. So Liam, diving into the show, let's start with some high scorers. So should we start at the quarterback position? Who were the high scorers of the week?
So we had a bunch of high scorers, and it really depends on the type of format that you run. But realistically, you're probably looking at Kyler Murray scoring nearly 35 points as the QB1 this week. Mahomes with 33.3 points. And then, dependent on your format, really depends on the QB3, because this week we had Goff at 29.9 points and Winston at 29.6 for the QB3 and 4 respectively. So 2 people we probably weren't expecting to be top 4 quarterbacks.
No surprises with Kyler and Mahomes, but yeah, Goff
definitely not.
I think it's interesting Goff being that high, because I think it is the Detroit garbage time potential. Everybody thought they were going to be a tire fire, but actually that could be quite juicy for fantasy moving forward. I think Winston, it was an NFL record in terms of 5 touchdowns on as fewer passing yards. I don't think we can expect that from him every week, but I was certainly impressed with what we saw. At the running back position, I think this was pretty much as expected, wasn't it? We had CMC, Joe Mixon, and Nick Chubb leading the way. Really, really impressed. Unfortunately, I had to sit and watch CMC tear apart the Jets on Sunday, which made my Sunday slightly more miserable. But what about the receiver positions, Liam?
So we had Amari Cooper, Tyreek Hill, both go off for over 30 points. And then Debo, if he was in anything other than PPR, went for just under 30 points. But Debo is a massive surprise again. No one expected Debo to be wide receiver 3 this week, or that high during the season, I don't think. I think that's a great result for him.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I think people expected that offense to produce, and I think there was always a question mark about who it was going to be, wasn't there? We saw Ayuk flash last year without Debo and Kittle in the lineup, and now it's a case of is Debo the guy long term? Are we going to see maybe Ayuk come in next week and have a Debo-like game? I think it's a question for all of us, isn't it? And then finishing off the tight end position, of course, you couldn't expect not to see Gronk up there. I think everybody had him in for 2 touchdowns in week 1, didn't they? Did you predict that, Liam?
No, the league that I'm trying to contend in, I had him on my bench.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, I think I went up against Gronk in about 10 leagues. It was ridiculous. On Thursday afternoon, I was thinking, they're starting Gronk, what idiots. And yeah, the egg was well and truly on my face. Then obviously we had Kelsey and Hawkinson and Waller overnight have fantastic weeks, which you'd expect. So to be honest, outside of the quarterbacks, no real huge surprises in terms of the highest weekly scorers. I'm seeing you sitting there having a sip of your cocktail, Liam. I've realised that we forgot to the listeners' favourite segment, the cocktail of the week. It looked a little bit pinky in colour again. Have we gone for another Sex and the City inspired drink?
So, yeah, let's not drag me into this. I remember that I have this cocktail. You didn't, so let's not drag me into that. But yeah, this is a summer passion. So it is passion fruit liqueur, strawberry liqueur, lemonade, and pineapple juice. Really simple. Whack it into a glass with some ice. Stir it. You don't need to shake it or anything. It's good to go. It's actually really nice. It's the first time I've tried it. So
looks very nice. Looks very fresh and summery on this cold, rainy September evening.
Yeah. What else do you want on a rainy September evening? Something to remember?
Well, I've got a nice decaf cup of tea, so yeah, that's my tip of choice this evening.
Nothing says British like tea, huh?
Absolutely. So diving into the big news, unfortunately, all of the big news, to be honest, is injury related. So the first big injury that went down, we got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now I'm going to get this wrong, but it's a subluxation of the hip, which I've been told is not as severe as a full dislocation. Apparently, it's sort of a bit like a dislocation, but it doesn't leave the joint. It sort of comes out and goes straight back in. So it's not as bad as a full dislocation. Apparently, 6 to 8 weeks. He has gone on IR. This means it's time for Taylor Heineke, Liam. Are you excited as I am?
We don't like to take victory laps at all. And I know you tweeted about it earlier, but neither of us like taking victory laps. I'm not saying that we expected this to happen to Fitzpatrick specifically, but it's a very tough sport. They're running full pelt every play. Something is going to happen. That's why we try to get the message out, get those backup quarterbacks, because when one does get the starting role, they'll spike in value, and you'll see that with Taylor Heineke over the next couple of days. Probably happened as soon as the timeline of 6 to 8 weeks came out for Fitzpatrick. I think, although I'm not a massive fan of Heineke, sorry, Rich, I do think that you've got to look at his price tag now and depending on whether you're contending or not, whether you need those bye week covers over the next, say, when does the bye week start? Week 4, so over the next 3 to 8 weeks, you start looking at that QB3, and Heineke is a good 1 year rental.
I think for me, I don't like taking injury victory laps, as you said, but for me, it's easy. I've already sold him in one league for a second. This is a guy that I picked up off waivers in the off season. I've just basically got a second for free. If you can make those moves, it's an easy winner.
It's how you gain value.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've not missed out on Heineke this time around, okay, but perhaps use this as a lesson. Go out and buy some of those backup quarterbacks. One that I'm starting to buy more and more is Jacoby Brissett, and that's not me saying that I think Tua's going to get benched, but I wouldn't be shocked if, with his playing style, he could get injured. I'm not sure if potentially, we could see him get benched if he doesn't buck his ideas up. And Jacoby Brissett's a guy that's, produced in the NFL. We've seen him be fantasy relevant. So that's a high end backup that I think could be usable if you've got a free bench spot. You're not probably not going to have to battle anyone to get him off the waivers on your Tuesday run. So the next big industry, and I believe we've got some breaking news, is that it's Raheem Mostert, originally expected to be out for 8 weeks with chipped cartilage in his knee. He's now announced that he is officially done for the season. What do you make of Mostert flashing? I think he had three plays and then was pretty much done again.
I do feel bad for the guy. You can tell that he's a good player. He's so fast, but he just can't shake this injury bug. And I don't know whether he actually gets back to playing, at least in a starter role from now on. He's already decently old, so do we see him come back at all? I don't know personally.
You've got to wonder, haven't you, whether he could potentially be done. I know his contract situation. He re-signed it and redid it at the beginning of last year, so it could potentially be that this is it for Mostert, and we're sort of moving on. The other big injury was Jerry Jeudy. I mean, to be honest, having seen what happened to his ankle/leg live, a high ankle sprain is quite frankly fantastic news, because when I saw it happen, I feared that was him done for the season and potentially into next year. It looked horrific. So his kind of expectation is 4 to 6 weeks. I'll be honest, with high ankle sprains, they always tend to linger. I always think it's one of these injuries that people come back from. He'll probably be back in 4 weeks, but it'll probably take him 8 weeks before he's kind of back to fully health. Do you think that you'd be looking at some of the other options in that passing offense, Liam?
For bye-week fill-ins, maybe, but I think Jerry Jeudy, when he comes back, will get back to full speed. Or when he gets back to full speed, he'll get back to what we expect him to have been for this season. I didn't see the injury live, or I haven't seen the video up to now, so I really do hope that it doesn't linger, because I had high hopes for Jerry Jeudy. He's a great route runner, just an utter thrill to watch on tape. So hopefully he gets back, but we'll have to see about that. Yeah, I do think that Patrick and Hamler, who we'll probably talk about a bit later on, will have a great opportunity for them. I do like Hamler at the moment, but he's not going to be waiver wire worthy in 90% of deep leagues, at least.
We might as well discuss it now, Liam. So for me, I think that Tim Patrick's probably the more likely to be fantasy relevant. He's probably the more likely to be on your waiver wire. And I think that, if you're in a deeper league, a 25-man roster plus, there's going to be a lot worse guys that you can go out and pick up. I'd certainly feel comfortable going and spending kind of 20-30% of my fab on him. I think that would be a decent add. I do think he's a bit of a floor play, though. I think he's more likely to get the volume. He's probably going to be a 5 to 10 points, maybe 12, 15 if he gets a touchdown kind of guy. I think KJ Hamler, it's funny because we talked about him 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? And I said, I think the exact quote was, even if people get injured in the offense and he was the number one, I'm not sure I'd want him. And to be honest, I kind of stand by it. I think it's interesting news out of Denver is that he's running with the ones in practice. So it looks like he's going to kind of get the opportunity to start over Jeudy. But I just think he's going to be so boom bust. You look at the stats from week one. He's led the team in air yards. He is that deep threat. Yes, if he catches 2 of them and one of them goes for a touchdown, then that's absolutely a starting week. But that's just not a guy that I want on my roster week in, week out, basically, because I don't think I'm ever going to feel comfortable starting him. And then when I do start him, it's probably the week that he busts.
Yeah, I agree with you. The issue is you've got to try and figure out which one's going to take up that volume. I don't think it's all going to go to Sutton, Fant, and then the running back situation. I do think that another wide receiver is going to step up, but is it going to be a split between them? Is it going to be one or the other? I'm probably staying away unless I can absolutely help it. But if you can pick one off waivers, you've got nothing to lose. As Rich did with Heineke, you pick them up, you sell them. Voila, you got a free pick, right? You didn't have that before, and you've not lost anything other than maybe dropping someone that you probably wasn't getting a pick for anyway. So,
yeah. And then the final injury news. Probably, to be honest, it's probably not fantasy relevant anymore, but I guess it's just, pour one out for Rashard Penny, injured yet again. This is a flare-up of the calf that he seems to have had constantly. But yeah, what do you think? Are you excited by DJ Dallas or not?
I'm not excited by anyone in that backfield, to be honest. My issue is I really like Penny, and I thought that he had good chance to do anything, but he just hasn't shown that, and I think this is the final straw for me. But maybe he comes back in a couple of weeks, because it's only out for, say, I think it was a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, so maybe he comes back and he's good. But I think that is literally grasping at anything you can try and find. I don't think it's going to happen. And if you have Penny and anyone's probably willing to buy him for anything, I'd be selling right now. But good luck trying to find someone, because I think everyone's got to the same point I am.
You know me, I'm all for rostering as many running backs as I can, but he's fast approaching that roster clogger territory. I just can't see a world where he is relevant. I just can't see a world where he's kept beyond this year. He's a free agent at the end of the season. I just don't know if I can't see him re-signing anywhere and being relevant unless he suddenly gets maybe he needs to go on one of these vegan diets and start doing Pilates and things like that. But,
the Tom Brady diet.
Absolutely. So the Dynasty stock market, Liam. So we're going to talk through some risers and fallers. So did you want to take us through some of the key risers in terms of Dynasty value after week one?
Yeah. So we've already spoken about 3 at least that we've got on the list. So we've got Deebo Samuel. He had over a 50% target share. I don't see that every week, but if you can sell right now,
I think anything approaching a 30% target share is unsustainable.
That is what I meant. But
I think it's really fascinating because I don't know what's happened with Brandon Ayuk. You've had instances where someone's fallen out of Kyle Shanahan. We saw the same thing with Trey Sermon, who I think we'll talk about in a bit. I wonder if it could just be a 1 week thing and Ayuk could be back. But yeah, I think if I can sell Deebo for an absolute haul, I'm going to do it. But if maybe he is going to be the one. Maybe he's going to be the one that this offense runs through. It'll be interesting to watch, certainly.
I think with Deebo specifically, we've got what I said in the off season. I can't remember which episode it is. They all just merge into one at this point during the off season. But I said in one of them that I think 1 week we're going to get a Kittle week. The next we're going to have an Ayuk week. The next we're going to have a Samuel week, and it'll just keep switching, and no one will know what week your player is going to go off. Like, I didn't have Deebo in one of my lineups. I think it was against Murph actually in the Rules Mania League. I took him out and he went off, but I don't think if I put him in next week, I'm going to get that same production or anywhere close.
Yeah.
And I mean, as you said, 30% target share is probably the ceiling that I was looking at. I wasn't expecting a 52% target share, and I don't think he's going to get back to that this season. Or if he does, you're not going to predict it, and he will be sat on your bench.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I guess the one concern I have about Brandon Ayuk that would be a great thing for Deebo Samuel is kind of, I've got memories of Dante Pettis, and Dante Pettis was I think a second round pick of the 49ers. He came and he had that incredible stretch down the season, the end of the season. Everybody was hyping him going into his sophomore year. I think he was sort of a fifth round pick in redraft. And then he just completely disappeared. He did nothing in his sophomore year. I think he was injured in his third year, and then he ended up being released. I think he might still be on the Giants. I'm
pass on that.
If he was definitely on the Giants in training camp, I'm not sure if he made the cuts of the roster bubble. But if you'd have said to someone after his rookie year that Dante Pettis was never going to be fantasy relevant again, they'd have probably shot you. And that's the one really, really scary thing that I've kind of got at the back of my mind when it comes to Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, I remember the very first Dynasty League I was in. I had no clue what I was doing. Looking back at some of the offers, I sent some awful offers for Dante Pettis and Kerryon Johnson. Look how they turned out 3 years down the line. I genuinely got told, you have no idea what you're doing. Here's some trade value charts. And that was how I discovered calculators and charts.
Well, you'll be pleased to know.
I'm just glad I didn't trade for them.
There's hope yet for your Kerryon Johnson, because he is breaking news. He is literally just signed for the 49ers to be on their practice squad. So, yeah, I'm not sure that's ever going to be relevant, but there's some breaking news for you guys.
He got cut from the Eagles, so I'm not expecting much.
I'm not expecting anything. So moving on to the next guy. So again, we've highlighted him. We won't stick on him too long. Jameis Winston, obvious winner of the week. 29 points, QB3 on the week, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Obviously, this is the greatest advert for LASIK surgery you could ever dream of, I guess.
Yeah, you can see the anguish that they've got on my face right now. I had to watch this game. I turned it off when we got to 33-3. It was awful. The issue with this game, it was so weird because they started near enough every drive around the 50 or in our own territory. If you don't know, I'm a Green Bay fan. So I just don't see him scoring 5 touchdowns on an average week. I know that it's a ceiling play, but I don't see this happening maybe once for the rest of the season. I don't see this happening often enough. But the thing that we haven't mentioned is he threw for under 150 yards because of the type of game it was. He started from the 20 and the 10 and the 15 on 3 consecutive drives, I believe it was. The Packers played awful. Rodgers had 2 awful picks. I don't see this happening on any sort of consistent basis. I just think that it's a boom week. If you can sell Winston, perfect. But I really do want to see him in a proper game before I make a decision on whether Winston's going to be the 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions season where he threw for 4,000 yards and was a top 5 QB, or whether he's going to be replaced by Ryan Fitzpatrick or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, this is an absolute ceiling from him. You can't expect 5 touchdowns on, what was it, 20 pass attempts, I think it was in total.
Awfully low.
We talked about Aaron Rodgers having a 9% touchdown rate last year and that being unsustainable and a career high and all that kind of thing. Well, Jameis Winston threw 1 games at 25% touchdown rate. It's pretty scary.
I mean, he completed 14 passes. 5 of them were touchdowns. That's a 33% rate on completed passes being a touchdown.
Well, there you go. I think the pleasing thing for me was that I think that watching the game, this is a Sean Payton offense with Jameis Winston playing within the Sean Payton offense. And I think that was my concern, was that Jameis Winston wasn't kind of moldable. But it wasn't, apart from a couple of the deep shots and the deep shot at the end of the game to Deontay Harris, outside of that, it wasn't that different a game plan from what you'd see with Drew Brees on the center. So to me, that's exciting as a Jameis Winston owner in quite a lot of leagues, because I see this as, yes, we're going to have interceptions, we're going to have higher turnover weeks than this. But if we can be you joked about the 30 and 30, but if we could be at a 35 and maybe 10 or 15 15 interceptions, that's going to be hugely fantasy relevant, because this offense is going to put up yards. Don't forget, it's got Michael Thomas coming back to it. This offense is going to be really interesting, I think, moving forward. Plus, the thing that shocked me the most was that Jameis Winston was running around. I thought, Jameis Winston used to be that statue that had that huge gut in Tampa and didn't move. But yeah, he looked like a different quarterback, the way he was rushing, and he picked up several first downs rushing. And that to me, yes, he's not going to be a Kyler Murray or Lamar in terms of his rushing upside, but that 2-3 extra points, he's huge. So yeah, I'm very intrigued seeing him move forward, certainly over the next couple of weeks. I think if he can keep those interceptions in check, then he's absolutely going to be a QB2 at worst. Who else we got as a riser in?
So the Detroit Lions offense put up, what was it, the 4th or the 5th most points on the week, and still lost the game. It's insane. I think with that whole offense in general, I wasn't expecting that, and I don't think they were doing very well until the second half. Got through a pick 6, but then somehow got back to 30-odd points, or I think it was 20-odd points, fantasy-wise anyway. So I don't want to buy into this too much, but I do think they will be passing the ball a hell of a lot this year. They're going to be from behind. They've just lost Jeff Okudah, I believe, who's their first-round cornerback pick from last year. I think that this offense does have the wheels to get going, but whether those wheels spin very fast is something else. But I am very surprised that the two offenses we thought, as a community anyway, everyone watching the NFL, the two offenses that we thought weren't going to do very well ended up putting 33 and 37 points. And I'm talking about the Texans as well, who pulled off the win. And then going back to my Packers, we put up 3, a measly 10% of their points.
If you'd have put a bet on the Texans outscoring the Packers by 30 points, I think you'd been rich. Carted out the bookies in a straitjacket, I think. I think it's really interesting. Look, the worry about this Detroit offense is the offense going to be able to sustain TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift? And DeAndre Swift is still not fully healthy. He's still coming back from injury. But we've seen that, yes, a lot of it is garbage time. This offense can sustain both of them. I think, yes, but obviously these are ceiling weeks. But I think that if you've got Swift shares, if you've got Hawkinson shares, you can rest a little bit easier because I think they are the 1 and 2 in terms of how this offense is going to work. The one interesting one, and you won't see this looking at, whether it's basic box score numbers, whether it's advanced statistics, is Tyrell Williams. I'm really interested because he went out with a concussion halfway through the game. Prior to that head hit, he had a 25% target share, and he was looking like very much the kind of focal point of that passing sack outside of TJ Hawkinson. Obviously, he went off. We got into garbage time. Jared Goff started throwing the ball all over the place, and Khalif Raymond, Quintus Cephas, Amon-Ra St. Brown, even Trinity Benson got a couple of targets. Those 4 guys all suddenly look all right in terms of the box score stats. But if I've got, he could be on waivers if I want to go and chuck a sneaky third or something at the Tyrell Williams owner, because his box score doesn't look great. But I'm telling you, before that head injury, he was very much looking like the guy in this offense.
Yeah, I didn't know that, so that makes me happy for the Tyrell Williams shares that I do have, even though he's now injured. The one person you didn't mention in any of that was Jamal Williams. Everyone thought that he was going to be a backup or anything like that, but he received 9 targets.
I didn't want to stay there. I know we're going to talk about him in a bit. I thought we could, I didn't want to tread on any of your toes.
I know, but I've got to shout out an old Green Bay Packer, and honestly, the energy that it brings to any team, I just love seeing him succeed personally, just from a fan point of view.
Yeah. And then I guess the next big riser for me, perhaps maybe both you and I need to eat a little bit of crow on this one, is Justin Herbert. I think we talked about him being held up as that QB6 in Dynasty, some leagues even higher. I'll be honest, his performance was one of the best pieces of tape I think I've watched in the last 2 or 3 years. Bearing in mind, this is a guy that is in his second year in the league. It is a new offense. It is, yes, similar personnel, but it's a brand new offensive line, basically. He was mind-blowing. He was absolutely impressive. He had 16 pass attempts on third down, and he completed 13 of them for 11 first downs. That is just unheard of. Like, that is incredible efficiency. And look, he had some ridiculous kind of efficiency stats in terms of under pressure when he was blitzed, that kind of thing, that looked unsustainable. Yes, this third down rate, there is nowhere they're keeping that rate up for the rest of the year. But it just, to me, it just shows that this guy is a phenomenal talent, and he's been schemed up to allow him to perform. And I'm really excited about him going forward. I think from a fantasy perspective, obviously, I think he's going to be good. He's going to be used, but I don't know if he's going to pay off that QB6 price. But I'm beginning to feel like this is a quarterback that you're going to have for the next 10, 15 years, because I was honestly blown away by how impressive he was at the weekend.
Yeah, again, this is a guy I haven't watched any tape on, but since the weekend, but I really hope that he does keep this up. I just want to see it for another couple of weeks. If he's still doing this at week 3 and he's still blowing our minds, then I'm all up for him being a top 5, top 6 quarterback in Dynasty. At the moment, I just want to see it for the extra couple of weeks, and then I'm all on board. I just think that I'm not ready to jump in, and this is going to end up being a PSA for everyone listening. Week 1 doesn't mean this is what's going to happen for the entire season. Don't overreact. Yes, we're going to have injuries, but just because Kyler Murray was the QB1 this week doesn't mean it's going to happen in any other week. So don't take it as that. Equally with Kyle Pitts, I wanted to bring this one up specifically because I've seen a lot of Twitter being a lot more split than they were pre-season. With I think Kyle Pitts put up 5 points this week, so I think people really need to start taking a step back and realizing that week 1 doesn't mean this is going to happen for the rest of the season. It just means this is what's happened this week. Let's try and take what we can from it, but not overreact to anything, either good or bad.
Victory laps are the worst, but week 1 victory laps are just hilarious, aren't they? You see 1 week and people are saying, right, he's a bust, he's fantastic. It's interesting. Have we got one more winner, one more riser? Sorry,
we do. Yeah, Jalen Hurts. So I didn't watch this game. I only tuned in for the Packers game this week, unfortunately. But I'm pretty sure my dad, who's an Eagles fan, would have absolutely loved this game because he would have been watching it. Had an adjusted completion rate of 90%, which is an absolutely insane, and I mean insane, completion rate. That's I never heard of that.
Led the league in adjusted completion percentage this week, which is a PFF stat. For those of you who don't know, it basically takes out any throwaways, any drops, any batted balls, all that kind of thing. And also, I think the impressive thing is that was all with a 7.5 yards per attempt. I think we knew that Jalen Hurts was going to offer some rushing upside. We knew that he was going to be that mobile quarterback. The question was he going to be a good enough passer to kind of move the offense to allow him to continue to keep the job and be fantasy relevant? And through 1 week, yes, it's only 1 week, but he's absolutely ticked that box. He was really impressive. Nothing more I can say on that, really.
The one thing we need to mention is, we know that he's a rushing quarterback, but he rushed for 7 attempts and picked up 62 yards. That's 8.86%, 8.86 yards per carry. That's pretty good. I'm not going to say no to that any week.
Yeah.
But again, this goes back to what I just said about week 1. Let's not think that it's going to happen every week. This was against a very poor Falcons team. he's not going to have this matchup every week, but at least we know that the end of the season last year wasn't just a flash in the pan, and he can do this, especially against bad defenses. So moving on to the fallers, Rich, we'll start off with Zeke. So he very much struggled, and I think a lot of people expected that against the Bucs defense, who they have one of the best defensive lines in the league. Let's not beat around the bush. And that really pains me to say as a Packers fan from last year. And I know Murph's listening or will be listening at some point and will be smirking because that takes me a lot to say. But Zeke really, really struggled. And I mean really struggled. I watched half of this game and it was very poor to watch. Yes, the game plan was not to rush with Zeke. It was to pass, especially with how Brady started looking for the majority of this game. But still, are you worried about Zeke?
Yeah, in all honesty. And I know that it seems to be a kind of a consensus going by low on Zeke, and I fully get that idea. And from a rushing standpoint, I think, going by low, because I think that rushing production is going to come. The Bucs are probably the best front seven in terms of stopping the run in the league. But the thing that scared me about Zeke was the receiving usage. He basically didn't get used. He had a career low 3.5% target share, which is pathetic. We saw Tony Pollard getting schemed up in open space on screens and dump offs and things like that. And that's a real concern, because where Zeke, goes from being a back-end RB1, early RB2 into that top 5-6 option that he has been for the last few seasons is because he gets the rushing volume, but on top of that, he gets that receiving work. And if he's going to start missing out on that receiving game work, that's terrifying me. If I'm a Zeke owner, I'm probably not selling now, because I think you're selling low.
Yeah, don't do it.
I mean, I say that. I live by the, always be selling running backs. So I think you should be selling them at some point. But at this moment in time, I'd probably hold and wait for a boom week to try and sell. So going back to San Francisco then, Liam, we touched on it a little bit earlier. I guess there's two fairly head-scratching, questionable kind of performances or lack of performance. So let's start with Trey Sermon. He was a healthy scratch. Who saw that coming? He was running with the ones in preseason. Camp was good by all accounts. All the reports were good, and he's a healthy scratch in week one. What do you make of that?
Just wow. I have no other words. I have no idea what to say on this. I've not seen any reason why he was.
No.
Nothing has come out on this, so we have no idea why. And what blows my mind even more is he was a 3rd-round pick, I believe. So he was a 3rd-round pick this year. Then we have Jermichael Hasty, who was on the practice squad last year, and Elijah Mitchell, who was a 6th-round pick this year. Both were active and took over from Mostert, who got injured halfway through the game. I don't know what this means, and I'd be lying if I started to try and say what I knew, because honestly, there's no information to go off. I don't know what this means. I do think he'll start to be active more during the coming weeks because of the Mostert injury, but I honestly have no idea what this means, why he was inactive. And it's quite worrying that he was just a healthy scratch.
I've got 2 theories. I don't know if either are correct, but there's 2 theories. I think one is that he's annoyed Kyle Shanahan. Dropping Mike Shanahan shows how old I am. He's perhaps annoyed, whether he missed a meeting or something like that. We've seen it happen before. Or 2, and it was a special teams thing in that both Hasty and Elijah Mitchell play special teams. I don't know if Trey Sermon doesn't. Could it be that they felt they were going to ride Raheem Mostert as the RB1 and use Hasty and Mitchell for special teams, and that was why Trey Sermon was a healthy scratch? Now, with the Mostert injury, I wonder if that means that I wouldn't be shocked if, knowing the 49ers and how their backfield works, if Trey Sermon was the starter and logged 20 carries next week. Like, if for me, I still believe in Trey Sermon, and I think for me, I'm viewing this as a bit of a buy low. If I can go and go buy him for a second round pick, I'm probably going to go and do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. But let's move on to the other San Francisco 49er that we've already spoken about a little bit, so we won't take too long. But Brandon, what happened here? I didn't watch the game, but from the stats, it doesn't look very good.
No, the strange thing was that obviously he wasn't healthy. He was carrying this niggle, this soft tissue injury. There was potentially some thought that he might be eased off, might potentially not play. That's fine. But he played 26 snaps. He ran 15 routes, and he didn't get a single target. And they were also using him on punt return. So to me, if he's not fully fit, why would you be using him on the punt return? Surely you know, if you're going to limit him to 15 snaps or 20 snaps or whatever, those are your snaps as a receiver. But who knows? I think I'm not overreacting to it. I think I'm still, you know, holding him if I've got him, and I'm just going to see if I can wait it out. If we have another performance like this next week, then yeah, I'm panic stations. But I think that I believe in the talent. I believe in the situation, and I believe in that offense. And I hope that he'll come good.
I do think that the talent's there. I'm just really worried as to why he didn't get the targets, and you can't even put it down to the game plan because Debo got all of his targets, Kittle still got his targets, and Okuda may have gone out halfway through the game. So what actually happened here for him to have no targets? Not even the game plan moving away from him, because they didn't try to run the ball as much as you would expect if they were really, really far ahead. So again, but I don't really know, and I think next week will tell us everything we need to know about Ayuk. I still have this inkling inside of me that it will be a kind of a, maybe we'll see one wide receiver 1 week, one the other, and then a Kittle week and a running back week or whatever. But moving on, Rich, and I don't really want to bring this up, but it's on the show sheet, so I'm obligated to. The Green Bay offense, I'm going to let you speak, because if I do, I'm probably going to go on a little 5-minute rant. So you speak first, and I'll just pick up afterwards.
I think you've just got to draw this up as a bad day at the office. You know, it's Aaron Rodgers' worst fantasy performance in his entire career. I think for me, I still believe in the talent. If I've got Rodgers, if I've got Adams, if I've got Aaron Jones, I'm absolutely holding. I think those are the 3 pieces of this offense that you want, and I don't think any differently after a horror show. I wouldn't be shocked if they came out and were fantastic next week. But yeah, I'm not panicking. Of course, the stock's falling a little bit, is why we're mentioning here, but I'm not panicking at all. So now moving on to our Player of the Week segment. So I'll let you go first. You've already hinted at who we're going to be talking about. So Jamal Williams.
Yeah, former Packer. So he really surprised people this week. I know that I'm in a league with someone that said he was going to be the starting running back for the Lions, and we were all skeptical, but I didn't expect this performance. I expected him to get like secondary running back a performance like he did in Green Bay, but he had 9 rushing attempts for 54 yards and a touchdown, and then also had 9 targets for 8 receptions and 56 yards receiving. So that is an incredible game for someone that I'd expect to be an RB2. I just don't think he's going to do it like very often. I was going to say every week, but I really don't think he's going to do that. I think it's not going to be a very often thing that it actually happens. It will see, but I do think Swift, when he gets healthy, will start to take over a little bit more. I just think that Jamal Williams will be taking some of those touches, especially the targets. because he's so underrated as a pass catching back. I've seen him throughout his career in Green Bay that people don't realise how good he is in pass protection, which will get him on the field and get snaps. And then in pass catching situations, he's so trusted. And I think the Lions have realised that immediately rather than taking a couple of games to get used to it.
Yeah, I think, I liked him at cost this year. I think that he is going to have a role in the offense. I think he's going to be one of these flex-worthy, in bye-week guys that is an injury away from being an absolute stud. And I think we've seen that through 1 week. So yeah, completely agree with that. My player of the week is actually going to be Joe Mixon. So he finished as the RB2, as we mentioned earlier. And the big thing for me is that I've never been a huge Joe Mixon fan. I've believed in the talent, but I've never really believed in the opportunity. And now with Gio Bernard gone, we've seen that opportunity in a huge amount. He had an 82.5% opportunity share. He had over a 15% target share. This offense this running back role in what's going to be a decent offense is Joe Mixon's and Joe Mixon's alone. I think for me, he's a top 6 running back on the year now. And if you can go out and buy him, if you're a true contender in dynasty circles, absolutely, I think he's a fantastic guy, because I really believe that this offense is gonna move the ball. I think they're going to be in some shootouts, and I think that Joe Mixon is going to be leaned on. He led the league in terms of rushing attempts. Yes, they went into overtime, which contributed to that, but they're not worried about giving him the ball and letting him run that rock. I really like him, and I think that this opportunity just speaks for itself, really.
I've been calling Joe Mixon's name throughout the off season as a value, and I think that most people wanted that opportunity to be there, and it finally is. I think just a couple of seasons too many of getting injured and having issues with production, and a lot of people have fallen out of that. But I do think that buying high right now isn't the best way to go, even if you're a contender. For me personally, I don't want to buy people that have just come off a RB2 or 3 game, whichever one he was, because I do think there's going to be down weeks, but I do think Mixon will be at least a running back 1, so a top 12 running back this season.
Yeah, absolutely. So the deep dive player of the week, Liam. So digging into those weeds for some unheard of names, who you got here?
So I don't know how much of a deep dive this guy is for me, because we've spoken about him already.
Name on everybody's lips.
He's already at the top of people's waiver wires. He's trending on Sleeper at the moment. He was in your waiver wire article today. So that's Elijah Mitchell. So he went for 19 rushing attempts for 104 yards and a touchdown. Had no targets whatsoever. But with Mostert now out for the entire season, I originally put him on here because Mostert was out for 6 to 8 weeks, but now he's out for the season. And we have no idea what Sermon's done. Do we see anything from Elijah Mitchell? I think that for his cost right now, he's not a bad pickup. But I do wonder how Jermichael Hasty gets involved, because he wasn't that involved during this game. And I wonder what happens with Sermon when he comes back.
I think this backfield is, to me, the complete oxymoron of I want every piece of this backfield and I want the lead back in this backfield, but I also want no part of this backfield, because it is such a headache. Because whoever's the lead back, is going to be fantasy relevant and he's going to put up stats. But who the hell that back is going to be on any given week, you just don't know. So yes, I think, if Elijah Mitchell is on your waiver wires, by all means go, and I'd probably spend a decent chunk of fab on him. I'd probably potentially look at something in the sort of 40 to 50% range. Yeah. But equally, if I've got Elijah Mitchell on my rosters, I am selling. I've seen quotes of people asking me about, I've been offered a second for Elijah Mitchell, and it's like,
Take it.
Smash accepted.
Take it.
It's I think that, as I said, this backfield is incredible, but who's going to be the lead back? Anyone's guess, really. So my deep dive player of the week. So I've cheated as usual, and I've actually gone for two. So I've gone for my guy Juwan Johnson. I'm very pleased. I'm sure Mark from the DFS pod will give me some abuse at some point, but he was one of my sleepers. I stuck him in my for my fan team lineup, and he came good. He played 12 snaps. He ran 10 pass routes and managed 3 targets for 3 receptions, 2 touchdowns and 21 yards. That is incredible efficiency. Overshadowed Adam Troutman, who's supposed to be the tight end one in that offense. He played 82% of the team snaps and was, the more targeted. He had 6 targets. He had that 30% target share, which led all tight ends in the league before Monday night game. And the kind of, I guess, the looking at it statistically, you're saying you should be probably selling Juwan Johnson because that target share, that snap rate isn't sustainable, and going out and buying and targeting Adam Troutman because he's the guy that's playing all the snaps. He's the guy that's, getting that target share. And I just sort of I'm sort of undecided. I kind of agree with that. I think absolutely sell high on Johnson. I think Troutman is an under the radar guy to go and get. But I also do wonder, Adam Troutman only ran 18 pass routes. Juwan Johnson ran 10 pass routes on the 12 snaps he was on the field. Is this going to be an opportunity if Adam Troutman's going to be the guy that's on the field for 70-80% of the time and every time it's a run play? But Juwan Johnson is such a threat in the red zone. I do wonder if he's got some potential kind of touchdown upside and could fall into the end zone and eventually be kind of a potential streaming tight end. What do you think, Liam? Who would you go for out of the two?
Yeah, so I think Juwan Johnson is just that one name that no one really thought much of until this game. Troutman, from when I was watching, he didn't look very good. And yes, I'm using tape eyes here, not fantasy. But he had a couple of passes where they were thrown to him. They were catchable balls, and he managed to either drop them or the defender came in and broke it up in some way, shape, or form. There was one that I distinctly remember where it was a pass over the middle. That should have been a catch and started to run up the field. And he bobbled the ball and just got taken out by a defender because he was too focused on this bobbled ball. And it should have been just a catch into the chest. I don't know what it is with Troutman. I didn't like him at the price that he was going at in the off-season. I do think that this could be a decent buy low window, but I'm just staying away from tight end in general in Dynasty. I don't think that there's enough value spike for you to gain actual value out of it because people won't pay that high, maybe second round pick just because they've had a good week because they're a tight end and they're so replaceable.
Yeah, and I think the one thing as well that's making me feel that Juwan Johnson could be something is you just look at the film, as you said, but you also look at, say, PFF isn't everything, but the PFF grade. So Adam Troutman's receiving grade was in the 30s last week. Juwan Johnson was in the 80s. If PFF are telling me that Adam Troutman was that awful on passing plays, then certainly something I want to listen to. But Liam, we are going to dive into the mailbag. We've got 3 listener questions, so we'll get through these nice and quickly. One we've kind of already touched on a little bit, but I'm conscious I gave my opinion but didn't really get yours. So this is from ATM 2016, who is in our Dynasty Listener League. He says, is Zeke at the beginning of the end, or is this an overreaction to the Bucs defense?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, and I'm used to you skipping my opinion, Rich, as I found out during the Dynasty Listener League where I was away and gave you free reign on the draft, and you just went through and went running back as you normally do, and then proceeded to tell me within my last 4 picks that you didn't like any of them. And I noticed before we do this, I noticed that one of them made it into your waiver wire article, so I'm taking that as a win.
He did.
So for those that don't know, that's J.M. O'Shaughnessy, tight end from Jacksonville. Anyway, back to this question. So I think that I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't think that Zeke is going to get back to the running back that we previously thought he was, where he was going as one of the top 4 running backs quite comfortably. I do think that we are overreacting to potentially the top defensive line and the top defense in the entire league. And quite frankly, can you tell me who's got a better top 7 or a front 7 than the Bucs defense? I don't think I could name a team that have such a solid and star-worthy front 7 in the entire league. And we're kind of comparing Zeke to that.
Yeah, maybe throw out Pittsburgh when they're fully healthy. But I think in terms of run-stopping front 7, the Bucs are number 1 for me.
Exactly. So I just think that we are overreacting a little bit, but I also don't think he's going to bounce back to top 4 status. I do think that he could be a top 12 running back for the entire season going forward, but in general, I just don't expect that top end performance. I also don't expect him to fall off the face of the earth this season. But moving on, because you've already answered that question, Rich. So Gary Acco 17 from Twitter. I know you really like this question, Rich. So not including rookies, how do you react either to not players getting either not onto the field or being healthy scratches? So in situations like Sermon, but without them being a rookie. And how long do you wait it out before you cut ties? So he's given a couple of examples. So Marlon Mack, OJ Howard, Keyshawn Vaughn from last year, who was going as a first-round rookie pick in Dynasty. And Josh Kelly, again, another running back that started out really good last season and then has just fallen off the face of the earth. How are you feeling about those guys specifically, or in general, that kind of group, and how long does it take for you to cut ties with any of them?
I think this probably comes back to a point we made on last week's pod where we were talking about, roster construction and those end of bench stashes. And I think if it's a player that I kind of count in my starting core, if you like, so Brandon Ayuk or Trey Sermon, then I'm absolutely not panicking on staying the course. If it's a guy like the ones he's mentioned, so Josh Kelly, Keyshawn Vaughn, Marlon Mack. So to touch on those 3, first of all, obviously, you know me, I'm looking to hold as many running backs as possible. But I think Indianapolis has shown us exactly what they think with Marlon Mack. He's coming back from the Achilles tear. They've just re-signed Naeem Hines. I think Marlon Mack's done. I think you can pretty much cut bait on that. Josh Kelly, yeah, he showed flashes last year, but to me, he's now the 4 in that offense. You've obviously got Sneckler, Justin Jackson's running as the 2, and I think Larry Roundtree's going to be ahead of him as well. So I'm moving on from him. Keyshawn Vaughn, yeah, again, this we're getting down to 4th options again. So I'm happy moving on from him. OJ Howard, now this one hurts because OJ Howard's my guy. But I think he only saw like 3 snaps total on Thursday night. So I think, yeah, you should probably move on from OJ Howard. I think with all of these guys, if you're needing to clear the roster spot for all 4 of those to make an ad, then absolutely go and do it. But if you can hold out for another week just to make sure, if OJ Howard has another week where he plays 1 or 2 snaps, then by all means move on. But yeah, it's tough to say that, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of them. I think the only one that I'm really looking at holding is OJ Howard. But what I was trying to say then was, when is this trade that was supposedly happening last year actually going to take place for OJ Howard? I don't think it is. I think it's just going to stay like this, and this is what OJ Howard's going to be. And I think I really struggle with that because he's such a good prospect, and his profile looks really nice. And when he plays, he does really well. I just don't think he'll get on the field over Gronk.
I just don't think he's fully healthy. You know, we talked about Marlon Mack having Achilles. OJ Howard's come back from Achilles as well. Like, let's not forget that. I do wonder if maybe I'm being a bit optimistic here. I do wonder if we're going to see Gronk for 4 or 5 weeks, and then Gronk will kind of drift off and rest up for the playoffs as we get down the stretch. And that's when OJ Howard is getting back to full health once we get to a year from the Achilles injury and kind of get eased back in that way. Yes, I'm being incredibly optimistic, and I'm a true OJ Howard believer. So I'm kind of clutching at straws, but yeah, I'm hopeful. But as I said, for the rest of the guys, I think I'm looking to load my end the bench spots with kind of injury away running backs or kind of number 2s or number 3s in backfields. I think once you're getting down to number 4s, number 5s, unless it's a backfield like San Francisco that you know is going to be incredible, whoever they plug in, I'm probably looking to cut bait and add somebody else, you know, whether it be a backup quarterback or somewhere else. But that concludes the pod for this week. I think the one thing I just want to say, and Liam touched on it earlier, is whatever happened in week 1, whether you were, you know, the highest point scorer in your league, whether you got absolutely stuffed, just relax. It's 1 week. Don't overreact. You know, don't kind of completely throw away all of your hard work and analysis and stuff over the off season just on 1 week of stuff. But yeah, don't forget this pod has been brought to you by Manscaped. You can use the code 5yard at manscaped.com for 20% off. We have got some fantastic articles dropping daily. Liam had a really interesting read about kind of roster management and advice on that side of things on a Monday. I dropped my waiver wire article on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, we've got Danny's Risers and Fallers. On Thursday, we've got Tomorrow Star Today again, and it's another banger from Lewis. And then on Friday, I'll be back with my buy sell articles. Ian, did you have something to add about the articles? Sorry.
Yeah, so I know that I've been looking at the feedback that we got over the past couple of weeks, and I know that a big one was how to manage your rosters. And I know we've not spoken about it on the pod, and I don't think we are going to while this series is going to be running on the articles. So if you are looking for advice there, feel free to message me or Rich or the 5yard Dynasty Twitter account, which you can see below if you're on the live stream, or if you're not, it's at 5yard Dynasty. But I think with roster management, it really depends on the league. But if you take a look at my article that I'm going to be posting every Monday, I'm going to be trying to incorporate everything I can and make it as generalized as possible. And of course, everyone that works for us or writes for us, produces great articles. Like, I know that Lewis and Dan are going to smash both of the articles that they've got. So take a look at all of them. Please just have a look.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, guys. If you are viewing live on the live stream, go and grab yourself a drink, stick the kettle on. The DFS guys will be with you very shortly. But if you are listening on the podcast, we will see you again next week.